All right, so the thing about materialism defined this way is it puts the emphasis on honesty over truth or actual accuracy. Now, some people don't like this because, well, then somebody can just be honest about their ignorant opinions and that's fine. Well, yeah, except for that if the honesty is equal, two people being honest, that's equal, then the accuracy determines. So the truth comes back. How accurate is it when you match it to whatever predictions or statements it's making about the material reality? Okay, so honesty, this is tremendously liberating. Okay, you don't have to be right all the time because you can't be. But you have to be honest, and that means admitting when you're wrong, and that means trying to be right in the future or figuring that out, or at least realizing, well, I'm not a good authority on distances. I just am never right when I estimate a distance or whatever. It's very liberating, and this is how progress can be made. And the whole idea that you could have somebody that doesn't want to progress, that just really, I just have to be honest. Okay, well, I just don't like people of this that crack their egg the wrong way. They're jerks, and I'm going to kill them. Right, but somebody else is honest and has a more enlightened view. You can compare it, and it does have to start with honesty. Especially if you have some really crazy idea, the more honest you are about it, the more you have to look at it yourself, and you might very just often be the one that sees clearly how wrong it is if you're just honest and look at it. And so this is one of the liberating factors because, see, defining materiality the way I do does not make us accurate. The question was, geez, we just choose the principles of mathematics and yet they're so powerful in reality. Where do they come from? We must have a way to choose really great. Well, you know, we may have a way to choose great, but we didn't have a way to choose perfectly. There, you can change those. And so we only have to be honest about this process as we're getting these principles and applying these principles. And ultimately, you don't try not to progress if you're being honest. You have to define progression. You have to define, it's like a spaceship. There is no one ideal spaceship to go to the moon in. Some are probably better for staying there longer. Some are better for getting there and back fast. There's various kinds of designs that would all be sufficient, and we get to choose which criteria, and that is arbitrary. Okay, but we can be really good at choosing based on our juggling criteria and inventing them. And the idea that, well, how we get a footing without axioms from our perceptions. That's what makes all of this stuff not circular. It's not circular. The reason the classical logic has been circular is this attempt to avoid basing things in perception. Meanwhile, science has come along for a couple hundred years, done exactly that, been tremendously successful, and yet society's philosophy hasn't really followed suit. It's amazing. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, you don't need certainties. It's just been proved empirically. But you do need perceptions. You have to perceive something. So an honest person reporting their consistent perceptions, thinking something is real, doesn't confuse other people because they were honestly reporting their perceptions and they all agreed, no, there isn't a character there. But for that person, they really are there, and there really is a material reason, a persistent material state in their mind generating that. So the persistence of their hallucination actually is evidence of some sort of material condition. And this is the theory of materialism, really, that all consistent perceptions can be tracked down to material causes. And now it's gotten so far that really all perceptions, no matter what, consistent or not, can be tracked down to material causes. But the reason that's not an easy out to figure out the truth of the world is that sometimes the material cause is just chemicals, brain chemicals, hormones, something that is not at all what it seems like it wants to tell us about the real world. So this is a new kind of interpretation of materialism, linguistically or in the semantics of it, but really it's ancient skepticism. They said assent to what is apparent. That's being empirical. It's focusing everything on your perceptions. It's okay to report honestly on your perceptions. In fact, you really are intellectually obliged, if you're going to be a philosopher or like truth, or just, by a million different systems, to be honest about your perceptions, at least to yourself. And then you would share your knowledge again when you're doing so honestly with others, in a way that's valuable, separate from the perfect accuracy or overall truth of what you're saying. And it does not have to be circular. If you try to ignore using the real world, you know, the only thing is that you can't get ahead of the perceptions. There's always the future and perceptions you don't know. So you can never be sure because you could always get more information on something. And that's really what they're struggling to get. They want to just be sure. Cause and effect. I'm so sure of that. I can't believe there's any other idea than that. Well, there's a million different versions of that. You don't have it defined so well that there's just one version that your belief in it means. It's a set of possibilities. Sufficient reason expands that set. And actually, sufficient reason isn't enough either, because reason is a mental cognitive construct. So you want to talk necessary conditions, things like that. But anyway, so that's the way materialism of this sort it constrains us to reality through our perceptions and the fact that we're defining what we think reality is through those. And it also liberates us, because you do not have to be perfect or correct all the time. You have to be honest. And every one of you can be honest, but it's emotionally difficult. Much more, and many of us that think we're honest, it's very emotionally difficult to be honest. But you can do that. Okay, and you can always do that to yourself, and you can always do that to a certain degree with other people. And it's limited by the efficiency of communication. But it's accessible to everybody. It's not, I've got to be really smart because I need to find the exact truth. No, everybody can take part in this process, and that's the beauty of online communication. So, for example, I use the example of, God, I forget, what is his name? The guy who's like in his 20s, he said he had a mentality of 30. See, he was honest, and his honesty helped ensure that he was a productive part of any conversation that somebody would take their time to have with him. Cheers.